Good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:10 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the April 13th, 2026 Board Audit Committee meeting. My name is Dr. Tiffany Anderford. I'm the committee chair for Board Audit and the District 1 board member. It brings me great pleasure to welcome you all this evening. For those unable to observe now, the meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the PGCPS YouTube channel for later viewing. Ms. Woodridge, please call the roll.
Dr. Anderful,
Present.
Ms. Boozer Struther,
Present.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Dr. Moss. There are 3 present. We have a quorum.
Fantastic. With the quorum present, the Board Audit Committee meeting will come to order.
One question. Excuse me real quick. Denerica is saying that she never got a link. Can you double check her email?
She's on.
Okay.
She's on now. Okay.
Yeah, because I sent it like 3 times
All right.
to
There we
make
go.
sure. Okay.
Great. If there are no objections, the committee shall adopt the April 13th, 2026 meeting agenda. There being no objections, the April 13th, 2026 meeting agenda is adopted. If there are no corrections, the February 9th, 2026 committee meeting minutes shall be approved as distributed. There being no corrections, the minutes are also approved. This evening, we have one public speaker for public comment registered to speak. Damian Rivera, student. Damian is not present. Should he join later, we will ensure that he's able to speak. This evening, we are excited to welcome our Director of Purchasing, Ms. Johnson, who will be providing an update on the procurement audit. I'd like to recognize you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for joining us. We welcome your presentation now.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just wanted to ask, do you all have the presentation to share, or do I need to share? Okay. Uh-oh. There you go. I thought I lost you. So today it is my pleasure to be able to share with you all the procurement presentation. The first part of the presentation I want to share with you all is the presentation that I presented at the ABAFA meeting. And then we will go into the presentation for the review of the internal audit of the rider contracts. So that is on the agenda, and so it will be 2 parts. I will give you all an overview of the one that was presented for the ABAFA meeting, and then I'll go a little bit deeper into the internal rider contract audit. So you can actually turn the page. And so just wanted to share with you all that there are procurement methods that we use in procurement. And many of you all may be familiar with some of those methods in which we use, which is an invitation for bid, and that is an IFB, and that is the sale bid process. And that is typically used when a solicitation is just really determined on the price. Then we go to what we have an request for a proposal, which is an RFP. And then those are things that if you all are familiar with having an evaluation panel, we actually have an evaluation panel for a request for proposal, which is an RFP. We also have intergovernment cooperative purchasing agreements. And so I'll spend a little bit more time in going through the intergovernment cooperative purchasing agreements, because that is what's the focus of the audit that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But these are where contracts have been awarded to other entities, so they have gone through a competitive bidding process. So I want to make sure that we understand that piece. And then we have procurement service agreements, which we call PSAs. And so a PSA is a non-competitive award. And so we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that as well. We also can do emergency contracts, which speaks for itself. It's the life to mitigate life safety and natural disasters. And then we also have sole source, which means that it is awarded to a non-competitive basis where only one supplier can actually provide these services for us. I got double papers. Actually, that is a duplicate slide. So if you can go to the next slide. And so this is the procurement process of how we actually work with our departments to provide them the excellent customer service that we do. So the first thing is that we plan. We try to find out what their needs are, how much is needed, and when are the services going to be needed, and just trying to get a clear understanding of what the procurement request for those divisions and those departments will be. And then we're preparing scope of works, we're preparing solicitations, we're preparing independent cost estimates. And we're preparing also how we would solicit this work and then what is needed. And so that's also collaboration with the departments in which we service. The next is what we do is that we perform solicitations. And so solicitations look in various forms, which could be one of those procurement process methods that we just talked about on the prior slide, whether it's an IFB, RFP, PSA, ICPA, I think that's all, emergency or sole source. So I think that's all the acronyms in which we have. I think I've run them down, but you can see that those is how we buy, and that's the solicitation. And then there's an evaluation and an award process. And every one that we have, any procurement method, there is an evaluation and award session that we're trying to make sure that we're good stewards of PGCPS money. We try to ensure that the contracts will actually produce the goods and the services that are required. And so we do have other mechanisms in which we check in purchasing before making the awards. And then the other piece of this is funding and payment. And so we ensure that the purchase orders are issued and that it matches the statement of work and the work that is to be performed for those goods and those services. So if you can go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the procurement timelines. And so we are definitely working on trying to improve these timelines. And so right now for a request for proposal, we are pretty much at a year. And so, yes, that seems like that would take, a very long time. And it does, because we want to make sure that we're doing the planning piece with the departments. We also want to make sure that we're providing them with the best care and the best services in which they need. We want to make sure that the scopes of work have been well thought out, that they have actually really have some thought and some detail, and that we are holding and that we can hold vendors and contractors accountable for not providing PGCPS with the goods and the services that we need. And then that starts like in that solicitation and that planning phase. And then we go through where we do the evaluation and the award. It also has on here when the board approval is required. And currently in our purchasing manual, if the proposals cannot be awarded to the highest technical, lowest priced, responsible offer, it would require board approval. And so then that would add an additional amount of time so that we can make it to those board dates and that board approval process. We also have the invitation for bid. We also do planning. We also do a solicitation. However, like I mentioned a little while ago, there's no evaluation. And so we bypass that step. But we are looking at the pricing and what is submitted to us as form of price proposals. Then we're making the awards, we're doing the payment, and then that's 9 months, typically, for that service. If the award cannot be made to the lowest responsible bidder, then that is when we would also seek the approval of the board, and then that would add on into that process. The next one that we have is for construction. And so construction takes a little bit longer because it's more complex, and I think I talked to them inadvertently, but construction is the one that actually takes 9 months because they're a little bit more complicated to go through the award process. And then if it's for non-construction, then that could be about 6 months. We have also ICPAs, which we are doing planning and preparation. We want to make sure that we are offering PGCPS the best options. We are also looking at those prices and those price quotes because I said that they were already competitively bid. So we are also looking at that in the planning and preparation phase, also in the award phase. And then this can take about a month. And then we have our professional service agreements, and then that usually takes a month. And then we're also looking at how can we provide better opportunities for PGCPS, and then what can we do to actually ensure that we can use a different contract vehicle moving forward and provide, an RFP or an IFB to service that work. You can go to the next slide. And so this next slide, it talks about our procurement thresholds and what is needed for procurement services. If you look, you will see that we have micro purchases, and then that is a small purchase, and then you can see what is required as documentation. And then as it goes up to $49,999, you can also see that, that there should be 3 quotes attached. And so we make sure that every requisition that we have, it actually follows these thresholds that are here and that the board has given us the authorization for. Now, anything that is above $50,000, according to our COMAR and our purchasing manual, we should do a formal procurement. And so those are the ones that you will see that we will have a formal bid process. And so remember, we talked about, an RFP, an IFB, an ICPA, or a PSA, which is a professional service agreement. And I apologize for being in such a acronym world, but that's pretty much just purchasing that we're in that world. And so then there are some exceptions that are from our educational article, which are textbooks, emergency repairs, piggyback contracts. And so you will see that that is pretty much how we look at every procurement, and then how do we move forward and how do we provide the best service to our departments. Now we get to a slide that I actually really like this slide because it shows of how we're trending and that we are trending in a good positive direction. You can go to the next slide. And so you can see that in this next slide, it has a lot of data in there, not a lot, but it has data in there. And so you can see that in FY24 that the board approved only 20 solicitations. And then in FY25, it was 16. And then in FY26, it was 47. And so you can see that purchasing is actually, issuing solicitations now, and that we are coming to the board, and that we are actually making sure that we trend from non-competitive procurements to actually competitive procurements. We also have the purchasing director approval of a formal bid. You'll see that in FY24. That's when we first started, trying to collect this data. We had 26. Then in 25, we had 27, which is good. And then in FY26, at the end of FY26, we had 53. And so that shows that, hey, we are actually, entering into IFBs and informal bid agreements. The purchasing, we also had some emergencies. And so we were at 7 emergencies that came up in FY24, 8 in 25, but then in 26, half of the year, we only had 1 emergency. And so that speaks volume that we're able to service individuals, and so that we can offer contracts to them, as opposed to the only way out to service them is through emergency contracts. We go down to the ICPAs, which most of you all know as riders. At the time that this report was run, we had 113 in FY13, 111, which is pretty much the same in FY25, but we've drastically reduced that number in FY26, half of the year in 26. So that was, some positive things that we moved to us. Then you have these PSAs. And so in FY24, we had 201. In FY25, we had 119. And then it says in FY26 that we had 273. Actually, that really is a typo, but I don't know what the true number would be. But we did not have that many. In small procurement, you could see that we had over 1,000 in FY25, over 1,000 in FY24 and 25, but then half of the year in 26, we had half of that number. And then I'll tell you why in just a minute. And then we had sole sources in FY24. We had 7 sole sources. In FY24, we had 7. In 25, we had 2. And then at the point that this report was run in FY26, we didn't have any sole source agreements. But this final number that is on the slide, which says that in FY26, the board actually approved 179 actions. Those actions are based on solicitations in which we had, where we were able to perform a solicitation and we were pre-qualifying a good number of vendors. So now we have competitively bid, and that they have standard rates, and then they actually have standard contracts, and that they are being able to be used across the district. Because before, if it was for a different division, we would do a whole separate procurement, and then that is definitely, not a good maximizing use of our time. So we are pretty excited about this 178, because we know that 179 is going to sprinkle throughout this entire list, and that those numbers that need to go up will go up, and then those numbers that need to go down actually will go down. So we're just very excited about that. If you all hear background noise, I do apologize. But then let's look at that as what it means in totality as far as dollars. So that's the next slide. So if you look at it as far as dollars is concerned, you will see, and I'm going to try to go very fast on the dollars, and that is that for board approval in FY 2024, we had just shy of 64 million. In FY 25, 17, and then in 26, it was 19. And so you can see that where those numbers are. And then in formal bids, you can see that the number in FY26 is pretty much trending on what we had in 24 and 25. And then the emergency contracts, you can see that that is drastically reduced because we're definitely trying to make sure that we are giving them the options than just the emergency contracts. And then you can also see that when we talk about the ICPAs in FY24, it was 137 million, and now we're just down to 10, which is roughly around where we could be, and that's a good trending. And then in PSAs, we actually are about the same, which are those non-competitively big contracts. And then we're still around the same as far as small procurements. When we looked at the sole sources, we didn't have any. And so right now, what we're targeting is that we're seeing that some of these contracts that we have, that 179, that is roughly about $15 million. And so that will sprinkle across, upward into this chart when we report for the end of FY 2026. So you can go to the next slide, please. And so, like I mentioned, we're trying to make sure that we are doing more trending and that we're actually understanding like how we can support our departments better. We realized that for so long that we weren't providing adequate support in all of our divisions. And so we took a look at what are those numbers of contracts that we have in those divisions and where we could actually maximize our time and our talent. And so as you can see, of course, it would be definitely no surprise that academics and schools and operations are some of those areas in which we actually provide a lot of contract support. And so we try to make sure that we restructure our team, and so that instead of one person being in charge of those three main heavy hitters, that we made sure that all three of our supervisors, one of them had at least one of the heavy hitters, and that we could spread it out, and then we could sprinkle in some of the other areas which didn't demand as much attention as those three major areas. And then we also tried to make sure that we're maximizing the dollars, because now we looked at those contract dollars and said, okay, where is it that we have the most number of contracts, an area of opportunities, and then those dollars, so that we can make sure that we are negotiating or that we are providing contract vehicles that have been negotiated for these services. And that's the FY25 review. And so here, the next slide is the FY26 mid-year review. And so we've got a number of contracts for academics that went up, which is always good, that the number of contracts that can go up in a department. And then there were some actually changes in the organizational divisions and levels. So some of these numbers would have shifted. And then we had the schools, which were still a heavy hitter. And then we also have operations, which also still continues to be, a very highly used contract in department. So that's how we decided to kind of restructure. And so far it's just working, that we're able to provide that customer service there. I am going to pause here for a minute. I'm going to take a sip of water, but I wanted to know that if there were any questions before I move to the audit report. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Just a quick clarifying question to start. You mentioned operations. I'm assuming you're talking about schools here at the bottom. Is that what you meant when you said operations?
No, I meant I meant the operations division that is led by Dr. Coleman.
So which line item are you talking about?
I didn't see them on there, but I know that we actually continue to service them. That they last year in FY25 they were operations, and then they had a total of 147 contracts. And so we've been working very diligently to make sure that all of their contracts are under contract, that there are very little PSA or non competitively bid contracts for their operations as well. and then making sure that we try to reduce the number of emergencies that they have because we're actually providing them with that contract support.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Board Member Boozer Strother.
Thanks. So I'm gonna ask three questions. So the slide 8, I'll just Board of Ed approval, FY 24, 25 versus 26. There's a big difference. Is there some type of reason behind that? Is that a difference in superintendent philosophy, or it could just be a difference in the reality of the work that is happening, like that we planned and budgeted the work? Like what are some of the factors that could explain the big jump and how many are coming in front of the board for approval?
Okay, and so some of the things in which we realized was um, that we wanted to make sure that we were adhering to the board policies. And so if those board policies dictated that we would need to go across to the board, we would do that. We're also trying to be a little bit smarter in our procurements and making sure that we actually award to possibly more than one vendor when it makes sense. Just having one vendor to service all of our locations, our schools, and our non-school base. For example, an HVAC, that actually spreads the work pretty thin, and then it doesn't give any of our MBE businesses, an opportunity to have a slice at PGCPS in maybe some of that area. So we wanted to make sure that we've done a lot more pre-qualifying procurements, and then those pre-qualifying procurements, they actually require board approval.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And then on the next slide, the big dollar amount difference from FY 24, is that because of the big construction projects, like that we actually had money for these big projects, like that we were paying for the middle schools and like Suitland High School? Like what was happening there?
So you hit it right on the head as far as the dollars that were spent on the construction projects during that time period, because we also had we had some new construction going on, and we had P3. I'm not sure if that was, if there were dollars in there for the end of the first tranche of the P3 and then the second tranche of the P3. But, we did have at some point overlapping of P3. So definitely it would be the construction dollars.
And then my last one is about the big difference. Let's see, schools, if you look at the next slide at the bottom, slide 10, 19 million, and then you look at the trend, believe where we're headed for this year. Is that explained by the community schools budgets and proper classification, like academics versus schools? Because that's something that I know we've been looking at, is how a community schools uh, blueprint grants are classified. Or am I totally off? Is there something else going on there to explain those big dollar differences?
No, I mean, you are absolutely correct in that, as far as how they were classified in FY 2025. And then also, our system is, we don't have a system. And so just trying to make sure that we're starting to gather this information and gathering the data. This is the data in which we were able to, be able to gather from our processes.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I do think that that was something I even began to notice at academics was where some community schools programs were taking place that maybe was arguable, that it was not curriculum and instruction, that it was really parent engagement and student enrichment, which I would put under schools. So it looks like that is being paid attention to. So I appreciate it.
Yes, we're definitely trying to make sure that we pay closer attention. So then when you look at the numbers for the mid-year for FY26, if you can go down to that slide, you can see that the schools, is their dollar amount is a little bit higher because we're just trying to make sure that we're classifying the work properly.
I appreciate it. Those are my 3 questions. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the new action, and then it was about the audit, and so the sample was actually it says that it was concluded in February, but it started, I want to believe, in February, and that the sample period was from July 1, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. And since then, I just want you all to know, like, we have done some changes in our operations and how we actually are looking at these contracts, because this particular audit just really looked at the rider contracts. And that is where the primary focus were. So then we had a total of 4 findings that were identified that I will go through each of the findings. And then we had 1 ancillary issue that was identified, and then I'll go through that and then share with you all some of the problem, and then how we actually, the recommendation, and then what are we doing as the purchasing and supply services to move forward with that. And so if you go to the next slides, it talks about the objectives of the audit, and this is from the internal audit team. The next slide. And so the objective of the audit by the internal audit team was adequate guidance in established regarding the administration of rider contracts. The use of rider contracts is reasonable. The use of rider contracts is excessive. Rider contracts are properly accounted for in Oracle, and then rider contracts are administered in accordance with the federal, state, and local regulations and the Board of Education's policies and procedures. So that is what the objectives of the auditors were when they actually decided to come and look. And I do apologize. I'm sure that you all hear my dog. They left him out. He is barking. I am the only one home. So I definitely apologize for all of that. Wait, let me just let him in because he'll bark. Because I want you all to hear this. I think we should be good. So I do apologize. But then let's go to the next slide. When it talks about the finding 1, the recommendation from the auditors was that the purchasing and supply services, that's PSS, director must prioritize establishing statement of works to ensure the department's progress regarding the administration of rider contracts is consistently documented for consistency and efficiency to promote continuing within the department. That's what they wrote. Okay. But here was our response. And so our response was, if you can go to the next slide, is that the purchasing department recognizes the need for comprehensive standard operating procedures. Our team is actively reviewing and documenting all current policies to establish clear, consistent, and compliant procedures. This works include evaluating workflow gaps, strengthening internal controls, and aligning our practices with industry standards. These efforts will not only improve efficiency, but will also reinforce transparency, accountability, and consistency across our activities. And so we started looking at that. And as we started meeting with the different committees from the board, we definitely wanted to make sure that we only had to look at the standard operating procedures once. And so because we had been working with the board and updating our policy 3323, we just wanted to make sure that the changes that we had were in line with the upgrade of policy 3323. But we have been waiting to kind of like publish those and to look at those again, because we wanted to make sure that once we actually prepare these standard operating procedures, that we just didn't have to go back and redo them, and that they were all inclusive of how purchasing actually wanted to move forward, some of the changes in which we are moving forward with. So we wanted just to make sure that, we had those, but we are working towards and reviewing the standard operating procedures. So there's finding 2. And so the recommendation from the internal audit was that the PCSS director should coordinate with information technology to perform a needs analysis to expedite the request for proposal to initiate the procurement of services for implementing a module in Oracle that addresses the administration of rider contracts. This will ensure the centralization of rider contracts and other purchase data, making them readily available for audit review and other necessary issues, and improving the efficiency of the department's contract management. That's a mouthful. And so we responded. If you can go to the next one on finding 2. And it says that although the purchasing department does not currently have a formal procurement tracking system, we are utilizing our tools available for us to manage and monitor the procurement activities to the best of our ability. In addition, we have taken several concrete steps to strengthen our process and improve oversight. Beginning in FY27, the PARS system, which it will serve as our official intake and tracking system, allowing us to follow each procurement request from the initiation through completion. PARS is an internal end-to-end tracking platform that was also helped us to be developed by the IT department, that will significantly enhance transparency, documentation, workflow consistency. We are also in the process of hiring a compliance supervisor who will provide dedicated oversight to ensure adherence to the policies and regulations and support the development of stronger internal controls. These actions demonstrate our commitment to improving efficiency, accountability, and compliance across all procurement operations. And so the long and short of it is that we're actually going to use our PARS system that was created by the IT department, and that will be our central repository of how purchasing actually receives its work, because right now we receive it in multiple different ways, which does increase, our chances or our risk of missing a procurement opportunity and then not knowing what that opportunity is, which means that we have to be in a reactionary mode. And then also we're trying to make sure that we are speaking at the beginning of the year with our departments so that we will know what those needs look like, and then how we plan on, servicing those needs and actually providing that technical support from our procurement department. The third finding that we had, the recommendation from the audit, was the director of PSS must perform due diligence when administering rider contracts to ensure that PGCPS sources are used effectively. PCSS should ensure that the use of riders is minimized. A process should be implemented to monitor all vendors after contracts are awarded. The current contract with SGK must be reviewed and continuously monitored to ensure that PGCPS has not been defrauded. Possible cancellations on this vendor contract must be explored if SGK is suspended or debarred by the state of Maryland. And so just to give you just a little bit of background about SGK, we found out that SGK was convicted of fraud. And the way that I found out was, on the television, and it was through a ICPA contract. It was not the same contract that purchasing actually used on that ICPA contract. And so that was part of the information that the internal audit team had. And so they wanted to just make sure that we were in compliant with our rider contract, and that we were actually looking at the contract from SGK, because at that time they weren't committed at that point. So we wanted to just to make sure that they were doing the work that PGCPS actually contracted for them to do. So here's the response. PGCPX acknowledged the concerns regarding SGK Contracting Inc. and its fraudulent finding issued by the City of Baltimore and Baltimore County. During the audit period, SGK was an approved vendor with no state suspension or debarment in place, and the annual department checked did not identify any restrictions. Once PGCPS was informed of SGK's pending lawsuit and relative investigations, both purchasing and capital programs immediately increased internal monitoring of all SGK projects to ensure compliance and proper performance. If SGK is suspended or debarred by the state of Maryland, the district will take the appropriate actions, including possible contract cancellations, to be in accordance with the state law and the board policy. And the last finding that we had, the recommendations of the audit. The PSS director should design and implement a records management system that specifically addresses the computation, retention, and retrieval of rider contract documentations. The procurement specialist must be held accountable to ensure that all relevant documents are included in this process of the procurement files. The PCS director should implement a monitoring process to ensure all pertinent documents relevant to the prospective vendors are included in the vendor files as required. The PCS director should also oversee the creation of a centralized automatic process to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the rider contract documents. And so as a response, we said the purchasing department recognizes that there are several gaps in our record retention practices. Historically, the team has operated in a reactive mode, and due to the high volume of work, our focus has often placed on completing projects rather than documenting them. Like during this period covered by this audit, the department was also operating in a reduced staff, which increased the workload of the remaining team members. We are revising our file checklist and linking all the documents directly to the checklist. This will ensure that each procurement file is complete, organized, and audit ready. Additionally, we're in the process of hiring this compliance supervisor who can't get here soon enough, who will provide dedicated oversight, strengthening the documentation process and the support consistent adhering to record retention requirements. And the ancillary issue, which was the recommendation of the audit committee, is that they found that, as recommended in finding 2025.02, centralized system for tracking rider contracts, PCSS, pursued an automatic system that will facilitate consistencies when entering vendors into the procurement database. So that talks about our vendor profile. And so our response was the purchasing department recognizes that variations to vendors' names have contributed to inconsistency within our records. To address this issue, we are actively reviewing the vendor portal to identify and remove duplicate vendors. Although duplication profiles exist in the system, it is definitely important to note that the vendors with multiple entries do not receive duplicate payments, as all payments are tied to a valid vendor number and financial controls. This cleanup effort will improve data accuracy and streamline our vendor management and reduce the risk of discrepancies in the future. Well, also I wanted to talk about, which this was one of the things that the internal audit was looking at when we looked at that slide where it talked about what are they looking at. And then we talk about the use of ICPA contracts. And I want to make sure that I read this to you all because this is really important. It says, although the audit team may determine that the number of rider contracts are excessive, the purchasing department will continue to utilize intergovernmental purchasing agreements during our transition phase. As we move toward a more standardized procurement module, we are reviewing our existing procurement service agreements to ensure that these contracts are tied to vendors who have already undergone a competitive process. This work will help us to stabilize and standardize pricing across the district. It is also important to note that a number of our pre-qualified rider contracts require PGCPS to issue its own solicitation before services can be used, which further supports competitive pricing and compliance. Our long-term goal is to definitely issue PGCPS-led procurements. However, the use of ICPA remains an approved and a compliant procurement method under the COMAR Section 21050902, which authorizes public agencies to participate and competitively award cooperative contracts. During this transition, we are strengthening our internal controls. We're revising documented practices. This compliance officer, we're going to supervisor, and to support more efficient, transparent, and accountable procurement environment. So I know that I've said a lot, and I know that I said it relatively quickly, but I will open it up to see if you all have any questions about the audit and then how we're moving forward. Yes, yes, Ms. Buderstratus.
Well, again, thank you for the report and for coming in front of the board to do this. I know it's not always easy to be in the hot seat of the audit committee, and really appreciate you bringing this detailed report. I'm definitely interested in the solutions to findings and appreciate the new role that you're bringing into the office and the if I'm not mistaken here, there's a suggestion of better technology to help with the work. And I know one thing that we identified as this audit committee came online and the work with Dr. Anderfull is around risk management and how what we are now discovering as we dig deeper, and particularly around Oracle and others, that the board really not having an audit committee, not always not being deep in the risk management, was we missed these systems upgrades. And I think it's good that we're really getting to the heart of some of this, and I appreciate it being called out in this report. I don't think I have any specific questions about the other findings. I just wanted to acknowledge that this report is meeting the goals of a standalone audit committee.
Thank you. Dr. Anderfull.
Yes, I want to echo Board Member Boozer-Struther's sentiments and just thank you again for coming and sharing both your responses to the findings and I think just some things that are in the queue to take place. I do have a few questions. My first is regarding the SOPs. You mentioned that you all are in the process of reviewing existing SOPs and you mentioned that you're waiting to update them. I want to make sure I understood that correctly and that I understand exactly what you're waiting for to begin to update them. I think I may have missed that part.
Okay, and so we did spend quite a bit of time in FY25 waiting to update the SOPs because we thought that there would be some changes to the board policy 3323 that would affect the SOPs. And so we wanted to make those changes all at the same time because of it did affect some of the outcomes of some of the SOPs.
Okay, got it. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. And then my other question was about PARS. I'm not familiar with that, with the system that you referenced that you said you'll begin using in FY27. Can you share a little bit about what exactly it is, as well as if there'll be training needed, if there's an implementation plan? Is it something you're already using? But can you share a little bit more about that, both for my knowledge and the public as well?
Sure. And so PARS is an internal tracking tool. And so the IT department actually helped us to develop PARS. And so it is just a tracking mechanism to track all of the procurement requests that are coming our way. And you have to be on the VPN to actually to support something. And so what we found out before is that procurement requests were coming in through individuals' emails. And so if someone was out, if someone forgot about that email, like we weren't able to provide them that service. And so with PARS, you put it in, it's an electronic tracking mechanism. We also found that PARS was very complicated when it came to the award process. So we're still working with IT to develop what that award process looks like, but you can actually have conversations inside of PARS. You can actually attach documents inside of PARS. And then that's also going to be helpful for us because then we'll be able to make sure that all of the documents that we need for audit findings are definitely in PARS as well. And then that would help us to find or to be able to centralize our documents on, especially those that are actually executed documents, and that is how we're going to start using them. So we have other departments that are on there. When we need a legal review, we can just send legal a response and they're able to access the documents. We're able to keep better track of them as well. And so everything is just tied to that procurement number that PARS actually receives. So it's just a tracking mechanism for internal use.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like something like a jot form or something. So there's a form that is accessible that you submit, and then it comes through, and it looks kind of like an interactive, like spreadsheet of sorts.
I could say that it's like an interactive sports sheet
Okay.
as source because it talks about the job. You have to list out what your when you need it by, how much money it is, what is your statement of work. And so it gives us all of those information that we need to actually plan our procurements. And so that is the questions that are asked. And it's not just, we didn't do a form template, but a lot of times you'll see that we'll use form templates to ask different questions. This one is just definitely in the system. So anybody who's able to go look at it, you'll be able to see the attachments and what was submitted.
Okay, great.
And then we're
Thank you.
also able to assign the work to our specialists in that system as well. So then there are no questions about what specialist you're assigned to because you can go
Oh,
into that system and you can figure that out as well. And then we'll post the award information in there. So we're using that right now because that's the best thing that we have to a system.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be able to have reports as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I know I took a lot of time there, so I want to make sure. Oh, and I see Board Director Adlian, if there are any other questions, but it's Adlian.
Oh, I had no,
Adeline,
I had,
Adeline.
yeah, it's okay. I had no questions. We just have a situation where we start trying to start board audit, but it's telling us that we are on board audit. We're trying to start strategic, and it tells us we are on board audit. So I was just trying to see how long we have left for board audit. Sorry to rush.
Oh, I see what's happening.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and so people are coming into the same link.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, you're in board audit instead of the
Hi.
strategic planning work group.
Okay. I had this link also, but I think we have the same link and we're trying to get into the
Yeah,
meeting and
that's
it's
what it
the
looks like.
same deal.
Okay,
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I think we can wrap up soon.
Okay.
But I did want to make sure that Ms. Thorpe didn't have any questions as well. You're good? Okay. Board Member Booz Estrada, do you have any additional questions? You're on mute.
I just have one quick thing to bring up that I'll follow up one-on-one, but I wanted the public to know that I'm asking it, but I could get answers that there's still some confusion at the school level around the approved vendor list, the AP for the PTAs, and if you could even spend money on organizations that aren't on that approved vendor list. And I'm talking about the I'm talking low dollars, the majority of these types of expenses. And I just wanted to bring it up that I will get more clarity from you about what is happening with that when it comes to these school-based low dollars. Do you have to use the approved vendor list? And if you're PTA, it clearly says that it's a suggestion in the AP that you do not, but there's a conflict still happening. So I would like to do some follow-up with you on that, if that's okay.
That would be a great idea. We are recognizing that there are a lot of conflicting information as we look across our APs, our BPs, our manual. And so we definitely want to make sure that we address those in totality. And so we are definitely looking at that. We are actually looking at, there is a difference between becoming a registered vendor and having a contract on board. And so when we look at some of those small purchases will dictate what kind of level of support that you need, but you still need to be a registered vendor so that we can actually issue you a purchase order. And so we're definitely trying to make sure that we meet with those school levels, department levels, division levels, so that we can start working on, where those different items are that we need to make sure that we're consistent.
Yeah, I appreciate that because the prices aren't competitive, so a PTA that does not have required but gets misinformation from a school thinks the AP says it's required when it's just really suggested, they can get better prices. I mean, that's just the truth, in these small dollar things. So that is really what we're getting at is, are we getting the best prices for some of these regular types of purchases that are done for school activities hosted by parent organizations and otherwise?
Yes, we're definitely looking and trying to have those kind of conversations in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for the little bit of extra time on that, Dr. Anderful. I'm concluded.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Well, I guess with that being said, excuse me. Um, excuse me. Ooh, sorry about that. If there are no further questions, um, thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, for coming to provide this information, specifically the overview on procurement, as well as the updates regarding the procurement audit. The chair would like to inform the public that the next virtual board audit committee meeting will be held on May 4th, 2026, and that will be focused on private records, on-site records, and privacy. Please continue to check the Prince George's County Board of Education website for meeting information and all updates. I'd like to thank you for this great discussion tonight, and for those who are able to join us, to any viewers that are watching us currently or in the future, thank you so much. With there being no further business, the time is now 7:09 p.m. The April 13th, 2026 Board of Audit Committee meeting is now adjourned. Have a good evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you all.